Many people are drawing parallels to McCarthyism in the 50s, but there are some points that we need to talk about. We are far beyond someone needing to say what the Army Council, John Welsh, said to Joseph McCarthy in those McCarthy hearings in 1954. John Welsh said, "Until this moment, Senator, I think I never really gauged your cruelty or your recklessness. You've done enough. Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you left no sense of decency?" Welsh was responding to accusations of who he had called communists without any proof. People were fed up with his outrageous lies. But in what we're seeing today, even if we said it, it wouldn't matter because Trump has no decency. He lacks empathy, morality, conscience, compassion, and of course, coherence. Last night, listening to his address to the nation, I found myself saying over and over that this is pure lunacy. These are the actions of a man desperate to hold on to power. And he's throwing lies on the wall in hopes something will stick. I won't say he's crazy or mad, but he is indeed scared. That is something Trump knows well, because Trump has never truly felt in charge of anything in his whole life. Deep down, he knows he's had to lie, cheat, and deceive to stand on stages where he never belonged. But there were so many moments in that speech where he handed us the roadmap of what was about to happen. And if we don't heed those warnings now, we are going to lose our right to vote. And that has been his plan all along. Now, a lot of people have compared Trump's words to those of 1954 when Joseph McCarthy spent 4 years terrorizing the country with this list. And he would wave this paper around saying that it had the names of 205 communists in the State Department. But he never produced the list because there wasn't one. Joseph McCarthy was running a play, and it will sound familiar. You invoke fear, you use innuendos, guilt by association, no due process, no presumption of innocence, and you could not disprove it if you were one of the accused, which was the point of the play. And many lives were destroyed because of Joseph McCarthy, and people lost their jobs. Here is where history should inspire us and inform us of our actions that we should be taking. Because Joseph McCarthy was a senator who was elected in 1946, and he began making the accusations that everyone is a communist in 1950. Then he was reelected in 1952, meaning the fear-based rhetoric appealed to his base, and they reelected him to continue working on that scheme. Does that sound familiar? It should, because fear is a powerful motivator for those who have been indoctrinated to believe that white Christian men should be in power, that they never lie, and that God is pleased with their leadership. If someone spoke up against McCarthy, they risked being labeled a communist and having the public opinion turned against them. He was known as the bully in Washington, with his fellow Republicans enabling his tactics because his primary accusations targeted President Truman's Democratic administration rather than their own. Again, does that sound familiar? McCarthy may have even been more successful long-term with his bullying and his fear-based tactics, but he got greedy and a little drunk on power, and not surprisingly scared that the fear of communism inside the United States politics was waning. And this led him to get sloppy, and he made a mistake by charging the U.S. Army being soft on communism. Since he was the chairman of the Senate Government Operations Committee, McCarthy opened hearings into the Army. This faux power structure that relied on fear, lies, and his supporters' compliance came crashing down spectacularly, and here once again history informs and inspires us, because those so-called McCarthy hearings were held in the spring of 1954, and when Army Counsel John Welsh said his infamous "have you no decency" response to McCarthy's outrageous lies on live television, it was as if the spell broke across those who had been entrenched in the fear that had gripped them based on all of these lies. We simply don't pay enough attention to the McCarthy hearings and the outcome of holding people accountable for their lies and leadership failures. But here is what we are missing that once again informs and inspires us. Those hearings ended with no decision, absolutely nothing. No action whatsoever was taken. But what shifted was public perception and outrage. So whatever spell McCarthy had on U.S. citizens and many people in Congress, it was broken. And it was as if they awoke from the nonsense of what baseless fear had done to them. This speaks to the power of fear-based indoctrination that is prevalent in societies built on Christian patriarchy, and why the moment we are in is another version of history repeating itself. It would be another 6 months before the Senate officially voted to censure McCarthy by a vote of 67 to 22. Why? Because people simply stopped being afraid and they were disgusted with McCarthy. But don't overlook the importance of the timing and that vote tally, because it took months after the McCarthy hearings for the Senate to finally act. And even in the face of the ridiculousness of McCarthy's lies, he still had supporters willing to have their votes forever linked to supporting him. Now, why is that? It's because we know that people who benefit from Christian patriarchal power structures will remain loyal to it to the very end, even when it harms the people they are sworn to work in their best interest. Once again, does this sound familiar? So what happened last night? Trump waived the list of communism. He announced the immediate declassification of shocking intelligence, and he sent us to whitehouse.gov. But the documents were gathered by his own White House task force and confirmed authentic by his own appointed intelligence chiefs. And I'm not going to waste my time here going over every lie that he told, because there are plenty of experts doing that. A man who was rescued by his father, enabled by his wives and the women in his life, and spews lies when he knows the truth, is using the same playbook that Joseph McCarthy did. He's even greedier, more desperate, and more afraid than McCarthy because Trump has more to lose. But I want to close this with the way I started. That speech was lunacy. And we need to awaken from this spell, because he's coming for our right to vote, because he knows he can't get elected on anything he stands for. This moment requires sacred activism. And sacred activism is holy because we are the ones working for the good of the whole. Spend your time calling your representatives today, tomorrow, this week. Your senators, one sentence, vote no on the Save America Act. Protect your state's voting data. Call your Secretary of State and county election officials, making sure they're doing the things to safeguard the voter files. Check your own registration this week. Do not assume that it is safe. McCarthy didn't fall because he ran out of lies. He fell because people stopped being afraid when one man on live television asked if he had any decency left, and he didn't, and neither does Trump. We can't wait to be rescued by those whose conscience might compel them to change their minds, because they have none. We need sacred activism, and we need it today.